Good evening, Spanish Fork, and we're here today for Macey's Kitchen Corner, and my name is Alfa Daines. I'm hosting this wonderful cooking show, and here in the house is Dr. Devika. Is that right?
Devika.
Devika! And please tell us more about yourself.
Hi, I'm Dr. Janae Devika. I'm a nurse practitioner, a nutritionist, and a holistic chef. And I help people to prevent and reverse chronic illness by eating delicious food. I help people to fall in love with healthy, plant-based nutrition that's going to heal their body and tantalize their taste buds at the same time.
Oh my gosh, that tastes wonderful. It sounds wonderful. And what are you going to make today?
Today we're going to make a hearty apple pie oatmeal. Now, usually when people think of oatmeal, they think of a squishy bowl of porridge, right? Doesn't sound very appealing. So first of all, what we want to do is make oatmeal sound exciting and appealing. So that's why we're calling it apple pie oatmeal. The second thing we want to do is usually when you eat oatmeal for breakfast, it gives you a lot of sugar, a lot of carbs in the morning. And what that does is it spikes your insulin and it spikes your blood sugar, and then you have a crash an hour or so later. So what we want to do is add some healthy fats and some healthy proteins into the oatmeal so that you're getting a nice balanced nutrition that's going to hold you over, satisfy you, keep you nice and full until lunchtime.
Nice. That sounds fantastic. So how are we going to start it?
Okay, we're only going to use whole foods. Okay. So if we're going to heal ourselves from chronic illnesses like diabetes and heart disease and prevent cancer, we need to use only whole, nutritious, organic foods. So what we're going to start out with is, for our healthy fat, we're going to start out with some coconut milk. Now, coconut milk's amazing because it's a healthy fat, and it's called a medium chain triglyceride, and what that means is your body burns it up like a carbohydrate so it doesn't store it as fat. Right. And it's very healthy for you. It's good for your skin. It's good for keeping you nice and full until lunchtime. It's great. We're also going to be using, instead of sugar, we're going to be using some stevia extract, which is a non-carbohydrate sweetener, which makes things taste sweet without giving you a lot of sugar. We're also going to use a little bit of raw local honey, which is really great for your digestive system, and it's a good sweetener as well. We're going to use some raisins. These are blonde raisins made from green grapes. We're going to use some Kerrygold butter. And if you don't want to use butter, you can also use coconut oil. Okay. And we're going to use some almonds. These are raw almonds, some apples, and some organic oats, some salt, and some cinnamon and nutmeg. And that about covers it.
Lovely.
You ready to get started?
Absolutely.
Okay. To get started, why don't you turn on the stove? Turn it up to like a medium high. Now this is a great recipe because it's something you can make the night before, and it only takes 10 or 15 minutes to make it. You can make it the night before, and then in the morning, if you're in a rush, you just heat it up and eat it. Or if you want to make it in the morning, it's still pretty quick.
Okay.
So the first thing we want to do is take the coconut milk.
How much do
Dump the whole can in there.
Okay, and that's, what is it, 14 ounces?
Okay. And we're just going to pour all that in there. Now the salt, it looks really solid right now, but once you heat it up, it's going to melt and become liquid. Coconut products, coconut fat, its melting point is around 65 to 70 degrees. So once it's colder than 65 to 70 degrees, it'll get hard, and once it's warmer than that, it'll get liquid. Right. So if it's a little bit hard, don't worry about it. It'll soften up as we put it on the heat. And the next thing we're going to do is add a half a cup of water to that. Now make sure you always use filtered water. That's very important. Tap water has lots of chemicals in it, like chlorine.
Should I wait for this?
No, go ahead. Just throw it all in there. Yep. You want to avoid the chlorine and the fluoride in tap water, so make sure you get a nice filtered water. The next thing we're going to put in is some nutmeg and cinnamon, and this is going to give it that nice apple pie flavor.
And how much of that?
2 teaspoons of cinnamon and half a teaspoon of nutmeg.
This sounds really good.
Now what we want to do is help people overcome their objections to eating healthy. Now, a lot of times when I teach people that, okay, you need to stop eating your cold cereal, your sugary cold cereal in the morning, you need to stop eating all the other unhealthy things that a lot of us have for breakfast, half a teaspoon. The first objection is like, oh, it's not going to taste good. So our first rule is whatever we make, it needs to taste amazing.
It does. And I have small children, and this I'm sure they're going to enjoy.
I make this for my daughter. I made it for my daughter once just to try out the recipe, and she begs me to make it for her every day now. I have to make it for her at night before she goes to bed so she can rest assured that she'll have it in the morning. Half a teaspoon of real salt. Now, when you're choosing salt, if you just get a regular iodized salt, that salt has been processed a lot. It's been heat treated at very high temperatures, and all the minerals have been stripped out of that salt. And so what you want to do when you're looking for a good quality salt that's going to nourish your body is you need to make sure that you're getting a salt that has some color to it. See how this is kind of pink?
Right.
You can get like a Redmond real salt, or you can get a Himalayan pink salt or a Celtic gray salt. Just make sure that it's a natural salt that hasn't been bleached and high heat treated.
So all the white salts.
All the white salts are out, yes. And then also we're going to add some sweetness to this. Everybody, apple pie is sweet, right? What we're trying to do is mimic the apple pie experience, right? So you feel like you're eating apple pie for breakfast. And to make it a little bit sweet without adding carbohydrates to it, we're going to put in like 1/8 of a teaspoon of stevia extract. So we'll just put that in there like that.
And that's just a small amount, and that can bring out the sweetness.
Stevia is very concentrated. I get mine at Trader Joe's, and this is organic stevia extract. If you look at the label, it says the only ingredients in there is stevia extract, that's all. A lot of the stevia products have extenders and fillers in them that just aren't good for you. And so when you're getting stevia, you need to make sure it's organic and that it's just, that's all that's in there is stevia and nothing else, or you're going to get a lot of garbage that is not good for you. If you look inside this stevia bottle, see how tiny that spoon is?
Right, yeah.
That is equal to like a teaspoon of sugar, or maybe a tablespoon of sugar, depending on which brand you get.
Right.
So you start with a very tiny amount. If you overdo it with the stevia, it's going to blow you away with sweetness. Now, when I'm sweetening things, sometimes people get like a bitter aftertaste with the stevia. And so to overcome that, a lot of times what I do is I'll use another sweetener like raw local honey. But instead of putting a 1/2 cup of raw local honey in there to sweeten it, I'll cut it way back and just put a couple tablespoons in of the raw local honey, and then I'll amp it up with the stevia. So instead of just doing straight stevia, you're doing just a little bit of regular sweetener. So you can do like maple syrup or raw local honey, and then make it as sweet as you want it with stevia, and then you're not eating a lot of sugars and a lot of carbohydrates. All right, and then I forgot the vanilla. This is just white vanilla. You can use any kind of vanilla you want. We're just going to put maybe 2 teaspoons of vanilla in there, and that's going to round off that amazing apple pie flavor. Okay.
It smells so good.
Yeah, what do you think so far, huh?
It's really good,
Now,
actually.
most oatmeals you put milk on it, right?
That's right,
and
yeah.
as a nurse practitioner, most of the patients that come into me with respiratory problems, with digestive problems, milk is a big contributor to them not feeling very good. Milk will produce symptoms like coughs or nasal congestion, sinus problems, a lot of gas and digestive distress. And so the first thing I tell my patients to do when they have one of those symptoms is stop drinking milk.
Right.
But the problem is milk is in so many things.
Everything.
And how do you eat oatmeal without milk?
Exactly.
There's a couple different options. One of the options is coconut milk, and another option is almond milk. So you can really make this recipe with almond milk or coconut milk. I recommend a dairy-free organic substitute instead of using dairy. Okay.
Lovely. So I think this is melted.
Okay, so what we're going to do is bring this to a boil. So you can put the lid on, turn up the heat, and we're going to just bring that to a boil. And as soon as that boils, we're going to put in the rest of the stuff. So while we're waiting for this to heat up, we're going to multitask. Whenever you're in the kitchen, use your time wisely, right?
That's right.
And so while we're waiting for this to boil, we're going to chop up our almonds. These are raw almonds that have been soaked overnight. So all you do is you take the almonds, you put them in a bowl, top it off with water, and just let it soak overnight. And what that does is on the outside of nuts, there's a coating of phytic acid. It's an enzyme inhibitor. And basically what that does is it helps the nut not sprout when it falls on the ground, okay? But also what it does is it makes it so you can't digest it. So some people get a stomach ache when they eat nuts because of the phytic acid on the outside of the nuts. So what we want to do is soak these overnight. You just cover them with water, maybe a pinch of salt, soak them overnight, and then rinse them and drain them in the morning before you use them. And that softens them up, and it also dissolves all that phytic acid so you can digest them better. And it starts the germination or the sprouting process, so they're actually healthier for you. They have more nutrients in them. So we're going to chop these up, and we also have some organic apples here we're going to chop up while this is coming to a boil, and let's get chopping, and we'll put those in when we're done.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Yes.
I love it.
Grab a knife, and let's start chopping.
Are we going to do this in little bits?
Yes, we're just going to do these in little squares.
Good. Shall I check?
Yeah, why don't you check? Okay, now that's boiling, so what we're going to do is turn the heat off, or just bring it down to a really low simmer, okay? And then we're going to put the oats in and let the oats cook for 5 minutes. Just give them a little stir, and you can even turn the heat off if you want, and just let them soak. Or if, depending on what type of pans you have, you might want to just leave it on a low simmer. There you go, good. Now when you're eating food, it's important to know not only that it's delicious and that you're going to enjoy the experience of eating, but it's important to know why you're eating foods and what's going into your body. And so I like to talk to people about the spectrum of healthy eating, okay? So when people ask me, oh, can I eat pizza? Can I drink milk? Can I eat meat? Can I eat butter? Whatever the question is, like, or can I eat stevia? Or whatever the food question is, I like to help people understand how to make that decision themselves so they're not always depending on someone else to tell them what to eat. I call this intuitive, intelligent eating. And so let's just talk about some of the ingredients we're putting in here today and talk about how you could pick a higher quality or a lower quality ingredient and get kind of so your food is on a different part of the spectrum. So imagine you have a spectrum, green on one end, and then it goes from yellow to orange and then red on the other end, okay? And the green end of the spectrum is super nutrient-dense, healthy foods. The kind of foods that are going to create a really healthy body for you, the kind of foods that are going to prevent and reverse chronic illness. At the red end of the scale, we've got the fast foods, the highly processed foods, the standard American diet basically, right? And those are the foods that create a disease state in your body. They contribute to chronic illness. They make you feel crappy. They zap all your energy, okay? So when we're trying to pick foods, what we want to do is pick all the foods we can from the green end of the spectrum. How do you know where the foods are on the spectrum? That's the question, right? So when we pick foods on the green end of the spectrum, those are our organic, local, fresh, raw foods, and those are the foods that are whole foods, like they actually came from nature. So the foods that actually look like they came from a plant or an animal, okay? So like for instance, cheese crackers, right? Those little cheese nibs crackers. They don't look like
good, aren't they?
They taste delicious, and sometimes the box says they're healthy, right?
That's right.
But what are they made out of? They're made out of processed, highly processed white flour, enriched flour, right? Which is one of the worst things you can possibly eat. They're also made with highly processed vegetable oils, which are also very bad for you. And they're made with artificial colorings and flavorings. So those are on the red end of the spectrum. They don't look like a plant. They don't look like an animal. They're not organic. They're not fresh. These apples, on the other hand, those are local. I just got them from the farmer down the road. They're organic, they're raw, they haven't been cooked or processed, so these are awesome on the green end of the spectrum. So all these foods we're choosing today, we're trying to choose every food we can as close, as far to the green end as possible, and as far away from the red end as possible. So for instance, the butter, this Kerrygold butter, it's made from cows that are grass-fed. They're not factory-farmed cows. They're organic, grass-fed cows. So the butter from those cows is going to be way healthier for you than, for instance, margarine, which is way on the red end of the spectrum, right? So if you're going to choose a butter, if you're gonna, this is gonna be on the greenest end of the butter spectrum. Margarine would be on the reddest end of the butter spectrum. So do you see how we need to choose? We could make the same meal with highly processed milk, margarine, white salt, cooked apples,
sugar,
highly roasted nuts, sugar. Do you see how we can make the same recipe, but it would be on the red end of the spectrum and it wouldn't be healthy for us? So as we're trying to decide what we want to put in our bodies to heal our bodies, we need to make sure that everything's on that green end. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It really does.
How's the oatmeal looking?
It's looking fabulous. It smells great.
I
am ready to eat now.
looks great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to turn off the heat completely. Let me finish giving these almonds a quick chop, and then we're just going to put everything in.
And you could take the...
Smells wonderful, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to put in some raw local honey. Now you don't have, if you are diabetic or have some metabolic problems, don't use raw honey, just use more stevia, okay? We're going to just put all that, 2 tablespoons, so you can put that in. We're going to use the Kerrygold butter, but you can also use coconut oil if you don't want to use butter, if you want this to be like a vegan sort of option. So you can do this as a omnivore or as a vegan. I'm going to put in about 2 tablespoons of either coconut oil or a high quality butter. Now, a lot of people might look at this and be like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of fat, right?
Absolutely.
You've got your coconut milk, you've got your butter, but what we're finding out now, scientists are looking into this whole low fat is good for you idea,
right.
And scientists are finding that that is not true at all. That actually, if your diet is too low in fat, or if you don't have the right kinds of fats in your diet, it messes with your hormones, it messes with your mood, it makes you so you're hungry all day and you crave foods that aren't good for you. So by putting healthy fats into our breakfast, we're actually doing something really good for our bodies. We're providing all those healthy fats that we need to build our hormones and to build healthy cell walls, and we're also making it so we're not going to be craving bad food later on in the day. Okay, now we're just going to throw in these almonds, yum. Throw in the apples. Now look at the ratio of apples to oatmeal here. There's like almost as many apples as there is oatmeal, and that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that all of our meals are plant-based, which means there's lots of fresh fruits and vegetables in our meals. So do you see how that's just mostly apples? It's going to be great. And then if you want it to be a little sweeter, throw in some raisins. They don't have to be the golden kind if you don't want, but I like this because it gives it kind of a little caramely taste and texture to your oatmeal, which I personally love, but it's up to you. Now remember, to adjust this according to your taste. So if you think to yourself, oh, it's not sweet enough, or it's too sweet, or it's not salty enough, feel free to just, put in more cinnamon or less, or more salt or less, or more honey or less. So what we're going to do is just put the lid on, let it sit for 5 more minutes, and then we're ready to dish it up. Wow. That was easy, right?
Easy. That's simple.
Is that something you could do at home? What do you think? Would your kids love it?
I think they would. I know I do.
Okay.
Right now. Can't wait to eat it. But anyway.
All right.
Yes. Ooh, now we're ready. We're ready.
Ready to taste it? Okay. Now comes the real test. It's called the wow factor. So when you eat this, if you're not moaning with pleasure, like, yummy, then we've failed. So
let's try it.
Let's try it out. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to dish a little.
Do you see that? Like those big chunks of apples. We've got raisins. We've got oats. There we go. This is for Richard, the camera guy. We'll just set that aside for him. That's enough for me. Thank you.
We're going to try it now.
All right. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the wow factor? This is what we're asking ourselves.
Smells good. Looks fabulous.
Okay. The mouthfeel is very creamy.
Oh, really?
To me, it tastes like a bowl of apple pie. That's what it tastes like to me.
It really does. It's creamy. It's fresh. I love the crunch that's in it as well.
Awesome. If you want a little bit of extra milk on it, just in case there's not enough coconut milk in there for you, you can also take some coconut milk and pour it on the top. And this is like if you make it the night before and you're reheating it, sometimes it's nice to pour a little bit of almond milk or coconut milk on the top.
Delicious. Well, thank you. That's fabulous.